Joining the show is presidential candidate Gary Johnson, who has secured the endorsement of the Libertarian Party. And Gary, I would have preferred you to be the nominee of the Republican Party, but unfortunately that wasn't in the cards. But welcome to the show.
Well, it's great to be the different voice. There are going to be 3 candidates on the ballot in all 50 states, and one of them is going to be talking about no war. One of them is going to be talking about sound money, balance the federal budget. One of them is going to be talking about civil liberties.
Yep. Well, hopefully you'll be talking about it, but I hope people are actually paying attention to it, because the biggest problem you have as being the Libertarian is getting taken seriously by the press, being included in the coverage, being included in the presidential debates. I mean, normally when they report the results of the race, they don't even mention the votes that the Libertarian candidate gets. They act as if there was a Libertarian candidate.
Well, you're exactly right. And so right now, what I need to do is I need to be on the poll, in the polls that determine who gets in the presidential debate. Right now, I'm being included in 2 of the 18 polling organizations that do polling to determine that. So, among other things, today on your show, I'd just like to make a pitch for everybody to get online, GaryJohnson2012.com. Get the phone numbers for these polling organizations and just ask them to include my name. I'm confident that if my name is included, that by the time the debates roll around, that I'll actually be at the 15%. But you hit it right on.
You got to know, though, Gary, from even as a Republican candidate, you had a hard time getting into the Republican debates when you were running. So wouldn't it be even harder to get into a general election debate when you had such a hard time getting into a Republican Party debate?
Well, so right now, Peter, I am being included in the polls by PPP and Zogby. And right now, I'm polling at a low of 6% and a high of 15%. So the issue is just being in the polls. If I'm in the polls, I'm going to go out on a limb and say that getting in the debates might actually be possible.
Yeah, although there will be a lot of powers that be that try to keep you out of those debates. Now, I know I'm looking at one of the PP polls that you're talking about, and that shows Obama beating Romney 47-39, with you getting 7%, pull you out, and they still have Obama leading, but by a more narrow percentage, 49 to 42. Slightly narrow. It shows you pull a little bit more from the Republicans. I mean, certainly if I vote for you, and if the race isn't razor thin in Connecticut, which I don't expect, then I'm going to vote my conscience, and I'll obviously vote for you because you are the person who I would like to be president. But I wouldn't want to vote for you and then put Obama back in the White House. I know you're outraged at the Supreme Court decision. My thinking is the one chance we have to actually repeal Obamacare is if Romney wins the White House, we get the Senate, and we get the House. If we don't do that, if Obama is reelected, we will never get rid of it, and it will help further destroy the economy. So I wouldn't want to put Obama back in the White House if I thought we had a chance of getting rid of him. So how do you answer the critics that are going to say that you run the risk of doing just that by drawing voters away from the Republican ticket?
Well, you're pointing out a poll where I took more votes away from Romney. In New Mexico, I take more votes away from Obama. So it's really a mixed bag, and they have subjected that to analysis. I think it's going to come down to what I've always thought, and that is I'm going to take equally from both sides, and then I'm going to take from the big group in the middle, independents that may have not otherwise voted. And Peter, I gotta. I'm kind of surprised. I would have pegged you for voting your conscience.
I am. I told you, you're going to get my vote. But if the Connecticut polls are so tight, and I expect Obama to win big in Connecticut, that's unfortunately the way my state votes. So I can vote my conscience without thinking that I'm actually helping to put Obama back in. But, sometimes the lesser of the greater of the two evils is so great that you have to swallow it up. I mean, that's my fear. And I'm not a Romney fan. Believe me, I'm not a big Romney fan. It shows you how much I don't like. I have to really not like Obama to want to vote for Romney over you. But yeah, clearly, if you could actually get competitive and if you could draw more votes from Obama, but you just mentioned that you're drawing more votes from Obama in your home state of New Mexico. Because I got to ask you this question because a lot of people are actually emailing me about it. In New Mexico, where you are extremely popular, in fact, of all the governors who ran for president, you were the most popular in your home state. You enjoy a lot of support from Democrats and Republicans. You served 2 terms, now you've got an open U.S. Senate seat. You got a sitting Democratic U.S. Senator, Jeff Bingaman, who dropped out. You got an open Senate seat in your home state. You could have been the front runner. In fact, I think you probably would have won that Senate seat had you gone for it. You would have got support of guys like Rand Paul, of Jim DeMint. You would have got probably Club for Growth, Americans for Prosperity. You would have got all the Ron Paul people supporting you. You probably would have won. Why didn't you go after that Senate seat? Or did you even think about it?
Well, yeah. Well, I've thought about the notion of being in Congress, but whether it's representative or Senate seat, I have to tell you, I think that the job is about bellying up to the trough. I think it's the root of all evil. It's epitomized by a statement of a congressional candidate running in New Mexico. He said, look, I'm going to get up there and I'm going to fight to balance the budget, but when it comes to spending for New Mexico, I'm going to go to bat for spending in New Mexico. I think that's the reality. And much as we'd like that not to be the case, it is the case. It's
I agree with you, Gary.
How much money you? Yeah.
I agree with you that President Gary Johnson is a lot better than Senator Gary Johnson. My only point is Senator Gary Johnson is better than ex-presidential candidate Gary Johnson because we could actually get you into the Senate. Rand could use some help. And, I think you're a much stronger candidate than Heather Wilson, who is a, congresswoman running for Senate. She might not even win. But I think you could have brought something to that ticket, and you might have really won as a senator. I mean, I tried to be a senator. I thought it was a good seat to get. I couldn't win, but you've got a much better background. You've got much more support than I ever had. So you actually had a shot, a good shot.
Well, like I say, I just argue that I think your performance by voters gets based on how much bacon you bring home, and man, I don't want to get up there and do that. I think,
but you don't have to. Rand Paul did. Rand Paul won a Senate seat. He didn't promise to bring home the bacon. He promised liberty. He promised to abide by the Constitution. I think you could have done it. But meanwhile, I want to talk coming up. We got another segment. I want to talk about the presidential campaign, what your platform is, what the strategy is, and the best thing that I think you could do, because I know that victory is extremely unlikely. We have to concede that. What you've got to do is you've got to have some influence. You've got to move that Republican Party towards a libertarian wing. You have got to, get into those debates if at all possible, get into the discussion, get into the media, and you got to take that torch, that Ron Paul type torch that will be missing from the presidential debate, from the primaries, and bring it into the general election. Even if it means that you don't win, maybe the cause of liberty could win. But of course, we can always hope for a miracle. We'll be back and talk more with presidential candidate Gary Johnson when we get right back. This is Peter Schiff speaking with U.S. presidential candidate Gary Johnson. And I got to add, Gary, you are definitely the strongest candidate for president that the Libertarian Party has ever nominated. And I voted several times Libertarian. I voted for Ron Paul in 1988. He was a great choice, but you were in a much better position than Ron Paul was back in 88 to actually get votes and to have more of an impact on the election, in that, you'll get a higher percentage of the vote. But, maybe the best thing that you could do is you might actually help some of the libertarians who are running down tickets, some of the local races with such a strong candidate at the top of the ticket. You might actually help some libertarian candidates win in local elections.
Well, I hope that's the case. And, talking about executive governmental experience, I do have more executive governmental experience than the other two candidates combined. And for those that are rolling their eyes, my governmental executive experience is saying no to government spending. Peter, as you know, I may have vetoed more legislation than the other 49 governors in the country combined. And right now, when people talk about the two parties need to get along to move the country forward, man, that is just code for spending more money, and that's the last thing that we need to do. So, I'd like to think I'd like to think as Libertarian president, I would challenge Democrats hard from the left on civil liberties, abolishing the Patriot Act, bring an end to the wars, bring about marriage equality. I'd like to think that as Libertarian president, I'd be challenging Republicans hard from the right. Look,
Gary, the best kept secret. The best kept secret during the Republican primary was your record as governor of the state of New Mexico, because it was a fantastic record in contrast to the record of the man that we did nominate, Mitt Romney, and his gubernatorial experience in Massachusetts was a disaster compared to how well you ran your state.
And you've got to get some humor from the fact that Romney talks about a balanced budget, but he says that we should increase spending for the military and that we should hold Medicare intact. Look, I finished the second grade, and the mathematics that went along with that, and it just doesn't add up. I mean, it's a charade.
Yeah, but I got to ask you, what is your plan? You had such a great story, and I know that Ron Paul stole a lot of your thunder, and, I didn't know it initially. I liked both of you guys, and I didn't know if you would compliment each other or cancel each other out, so it's hard to say, but I know that Ron Paul stole some of your thunder, but if you couldn't sell, right, Gary Johnson in the Republican Party, despite how awesome your record was, right? What's your strategy for taking that show into a bigger stage and trying to sell Gary Johnson to the general electorate?
Well, very quickly, CNN's the one that did this to me. CNN excluded me from their second debate by saying that I needed to be at 2% in A, B, and C poll. I wasn't in A, B, C poll, and that really cast my whole candidacy in stone. I wasn't even a candidate running. CNN includes me in their first biweekly poll about 10 months ago. I'm tied with Kane. I'm ahead of Santorum. I'm ahead of Huntsman, and they dropped my name from that poll, never to reappear. Jesse Ventura, is on his national book tour. Unbeknownst to me, he's endorsing me. He's endorsing me at every stop. He does that live on CNN. CNN switches that over to the web, and they edit out his endorsement. He says, I'm going back on CNN. I want a T-shirt that I can wear so that they can't edit it out. He wears the T-shirt, and they put block lettering over the T-shirt. Interviewing him.
Well, wait a minute. So why does CNN have it out? Why do they really care so much about the Republican nominee? Were they afraid if you were the nominee that you were going to win, and they wanted to have a guy that they knew would lose? You think that was it?
Well, is that the reason? I mean, these are the powers that be. When we talk about the media having power in ways that really go undetected, I experienced that. This is, I'm excited about what's happening here. I mean, this is going up against the powers that be, and I wouldn't be doing this if there wasn't the possibility of winning. And now I'm back to this scenario of being in the national debate, which, if I'm in the polls, I think is very possible.
Well, I think if you could get into the debates, all of the debates, you have the potential to do as well, if not better, than Ross Perot. The other problem is money. Ross Perot ran a credible third-party campaign because he had a deep pocket. Do you have the people? Do you have like the Peter Thiels, that are going to come out and write the big checks for you? Because you're going to need a ton of money. I mean, what Obama and Romney have is insane amounts of money at this point, and that they're going to have. So if you're going to be credible, you're going to have to tap into a big well of money to be able to run the TV ads that you're going to need to win the race.
Oh, you're absolutely right, and we've actually had a couple of big donors step up. So I'm heartened by the whole process, and of course, you got to have your first big donors step up before you'll have others that follow. But that has happened, and for fractions of a penny right now, relative to their dollars, look, I'm really heartened by this. I'm the opposite. I'm an optimist. I've always been one, and I see an opportunity here to genuinely affect the race, well, potentially winning.
Yeah, you got to get a guy like like a Sheldon Abelstein, who was throwing all this money at John McCain. No, not John McCain. Who was the speaker?
Gingrich.
Gingrich. Why he had to spend so much money helping Gingrich, I don't know. I mean, he'd be better off sending that money your way. But I mean, it's going to take a big wall. Right now, all that big tight money is going to go Romney's way because they figure that he could win. But I know you could tap into. There's got to be a lot of disgruntled Democrats who really felt that they got knifed in the back by Obama. They really bought a bill of goods or a pig in a poke with Obama. They can't bring themselves to vote Romney, but they certainly could vote for you. And that hopefully that's the real voter base that you can take into the discouraged Democrats who can't pull the lever for Republican, but they'll vote Gary Johnson.
Well, that is the tack. So with a broad brush stroke, the whole notion that most people in this country are fiscally responsible and socially accepting, tolerant. I'm certainly in that group, and I don't think that group is being
But then the thing,
at all.
Gary, if you can get a lot of those Democrats to start voting for you, then more Republicans will vote their conscience. Because obviously any Republican who believes in limited government, who's a small government guy who wants freedom and liberty, if they could pick the next president between Romney and you, they would pick you in a heartbeat. The reason they won't vote for you is because they think that you can't win, and they want to vote for the lesser of the two evils. But if you can preempt that by getting enough Democrats on board and showing the Republicans that they're not wasting their vote to vote for you, but you actually have a chance of winning, then you can actually move the needle. Then you maybe can get enough in these polls to be in these debates. And look, if you have a chance to go one-on-one with these guys, you have to be able to beat Romney and Obama in a debate.
Well, and your analysis is dead on. I mean, you're right on, and it's the notion that the potential of winning, and we've got to show that, and it's not going to be for lack of work that doesn't happen.
And hopefully you could tap into the freedom movement with Ron Paul. I know Rand had to endorse Romney, but Ron doesn't have to do that. And hopefully you can tap in to that because he's got a lot of support. And obviously you're the natural choice for all the Ron Paul people. If they want Ron Paul's principles in the White House, right now the only way to get him there is with Gary Johnson. So, Gary, we're out of time. I wish you all the best. Hopefully you're not the spoiler, but either you win it outright or you help Romney win over Obama because, he's definitely my least, the worst person for the job. But anyway, good luck. Thanks for everything you do. You're a hardworking guy, and I got to take my hat off to you. It's not easy to run for anything, let alone president.